There's a moment when you realize that your life has been slowly shaped by someone else's rules. It didn't happen in one dramatic takeover. It was quiet, almost invisible. A small compromise here, a little silence there, a smile you forced because it was easier than a fight. Over time, your own voice got softer while theirs grew louder. And now you barely remember what it felt like to make a decision without running it through the filter of their approval. The pressure is constant. Sometimes it's loud and obvious, with sharp words or heavy sighs. Sometimes it's subtle, just a pause in their tone, a raised eyebrow, the kind of look that makes your stomach twist. You start catching yourself thinking ahead, rehearsing answers, making sure you won't trigger that reaction. You call it keeping the peace, but the peace you're keeping is theirs, not yours. And inside, something feels hollow. Not the kind of tiredness that goes away with a good night's sleep, but a deep fatigue that sits in your bones. You wake up already bracing yourself. You go to bed replaying the day, wondering where you could have done better, been nicer, been less of a problem. That constant measuring, adjusting, bending, it drains you in ways you can't explain to people who haven't lived it. The worst part is that you've started to believe this is just who you are now. You tell yourself you're being mature, understanding, patient. But deep down, you know this isn't maturity, it's survival. And survival has a cost. That exhaustion you feel, it's not weakness. It's not a sign that you failed. It's a signal, a warning light. Your body and mind telling you that you've been living on someone else's terms for too long, that your freedom hasn't been taken away in one blow, but rented out piece by piece until there's almost nothing left that feels truly yours. You've heard it all before. Just ignore them. Don't take it personally. Be kinder. Maybe they'll change. You need to understand and forgive. On the surface, these phrases sound noble. They sound like wisdom. But if you've lived in the grip of a narcissistic dynamic, you know they can become another prison. Just ignore them assumes you have the luxury of switching off. But when the manipulation is woven into your daily life, in the tone of voice, in the way conversations are steered, in the subtle rewriting of reality, ignoring is not an option. You can't ignore a storm when you're standing in the middle of it. Be kinder might be the most dangerous illusion. Not because kindness is wrong, but because in this context, kindness becomes a currency. Every extra ounce of patience, every careful smile, every moment you swallow your own truth, it gets taken as proof that they're right and you'll bend again. Narcissistic control doesn't dissolve in the warmth of your good intentions. In fact, it thrives on them. Understand and forgive can sound like the highest moral ground, but understanding without boundaries is surrender. Forgiveness without safety is self-erasure. The truth is, many people stay in toxic dynamics precisely because they are capable of understanding, because they can see the pain and history behind the other person's cruelty. And that empathy becomes a chain, convincing you that enduring mistreatment is the noble choice. Here's the mechanism most people miss. Narcissistic dynamics are not fueled only by aggression. They're also fed by your hunger to be seen as good, as loving, as the bigger person. That hunger makes you predictable. It makes you easier to pull back into the cycle, even after you swear you're done. And so the trap isn't just built from their tactics. It's built from your values, your loyalty, your empathy, your willingness to see the best in people. These are beautiful qualities, but in the wrong hands, they become tools of control. Here's the shift that changes everything. You do not have to earn the right to have boundaries. You do not have to explain, justify, or make a case for why you need space, privacy, or respect. Those are not privileges someone else grants you. They are part of being a human being. When you've lived under constant pressure, you get used to thinking that every no needs a reason, that every choice you make has to pass some invisible test. But boundaries are not up for debate. They don't require permission. The moment you stop framing them as something you have to defend, you start stepping out of the dynamic that keeps you trapped. And here's the thing. You will feel guilt at first. You'll feel fear. Because for so long, your safety came from keeping the other person calm, keeping the environment predictable. Breaking that pattern feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. But it's also the first real breath you've taken in years. If you're nodding right now, if something in you is waking up, then this is the place you need to be. Subscribe now, because we are going to go much deeper into what's been holding you, and more importantly, how you break free. A narcissist is not just an external figure who happens to have power over you. In depth psychology, and especially in Jung's work, they can also be understood as a mirror, a living projection of parts of your own psyche you've disowned. This doesn't mean you are like them in behavior or intention. It means they awaken something in you that's already there, hidden in the shadow. The shadow is not evil by nature. It's the collection of everything about yourself you've learned to hide. Anger, pride, self-interest, the ability to say no. In many families, especially those built on control or emotional neglect, children learn that these parts are dangerous, so they bury them. They become good instead. And in that goodness, they leave the shadow unattended, unintegrated. When you meet a narcissist, they carry all the traits you've disowned, but in distorted, inflated form. They are unapologetically self-focused, demanding, willing to impose themselves. And while their version is toxic, something in you recognizes the raw life force you've denied yourself. This recognition is unconscious, and it can create a strange pull. Part of you feels repelled. Another part feels drawn in. That's where unconscious guilt comes in. Guilt for wanting to take up space. Guilt for even imagining you could set terms in a relationship. If you've been conditioned to believe that love comes through service, that attention must be earned, then the mere thought of protecting yourself can trigger shame. This shame is the perfect glue for a narcissistic dynamic. It keeps you quiet, compliant, and self-blaming. Fear of loneliness deepens the trap. The psyche, especially when shaped by early emotional deprivation, equates separation with danger. It's not just about being alone. It's about the ancient, body-level terror of abandonment. This fear can override logic, override self-respect, and make you choose connection at any cost, even if that cost is your dignity. The real breakthrough comes when you see the narcissist not only as a predator, but as a messenger. They expose the parts of you that need reclaiming. They force you to confront your own shadow, not to become like them, but to integrate what's been hidden. To take back your capacity for self-assertion, for healthy anger, for saying no without an essay of explanations. When you bridge the gap between your inner and outer worlds, the external narcissistic figures lose their hold. Not because they change, but because the hook they've been hanging on is gone. And once it's gone, you start to see them for what they are, not what your unhealed self needed them to be. Knowing the mechanisms is only the first step. The real shift comes when you start practicing new ways of being. Not once, not in a single burst of courage, but over and over until they become natural. First, learn to spot the patterns in real time. Manipulation is often subtle. A question framed to make you doubt yourself, a reminder of something you owe them, a casual comment that plants guilt. Instead of arguing the point, name the pattern to yourself. This is a guilt hook. This is reality bending. That awareness breaks the automatic response and buys you space to choose differently. Second, strengthen your boundaries in small, consistent ways. Start with low-stakes situations, saying no to a request that feels off, changing the subject when someone pries too much, letting a call go unanswered. These moments might seem minor, but they rewire your nervous system to tolerate the discomfort of holding your ground. Third, work with your body. Narcissistic dynamics live not just in your thoughts, but in your muscles, breath, and posture. When you feel yourself collapsing inward, straighten your spine, drop your shoulders, and take slow, deep breaths into your belly. If fear spikes, plant your feet firmly on the ground and press down as if you're telling your body, I am here, I am safe. Somatic cues like these can keep you from sliding back into submission. Fourth, create an inner reminder that you are not responsible for managing another person's emotions. This sounds simple, but it goes against years, sometimes decades of conditioning. You can write it down, say it out loud, or anchor it in a visual image. The more often you reinforce it, the faster it becomes a reflex. And finally, expect setbacks. There will be days when you slip back into old patterns, when fear wins, when you leave a conversation replaying what you should have said. This is not failure. It's part of the process. Strength is built in the return, in the moment you notice and choose again. The integration is emotional as much as it is practical. You're not just changing behavior, you're reshaping the identity that has been built around survival. It takes patience, compassion for yourself, and the willingness to see progress in inches, not miles. Every time you hold a boundary, every time you resist the hook, you're not just keeping someone else's control at bay. You're building a version of yourself that doesn't need to live under it at all. There comes a point when you realize you're no longer fighting to escape someone else's control. You're simply living from your own center. That shift is quiet. It's not a dramatic announcement or a sudden burst of confidence. It's the steady, grounded feeling that you belong to yourself again. You stop over-explaining. You stop scanning for danger in every pause or glance. You catch yourself laughing without wondering who's listening. These small moments are the real markers of freedom, not the absence of the narcissist, but the presence of you. And you start to see your darkness differently, not as a threat, but as an ally. The parts of you that can get angry, that can stand firm, that can say enough, they're not flaws. They are the muscles of your soul, built to protect what matters. You no longer try to kill those parts. You learn to hold them, to let them stand beside you. This is only the beginning. The path is long, and there will be days when the old pull returns. But each step you take with your own voice intact is a step that cannot be undone. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the one that gives someone else the courage to start. And remember, we are not walking away from something. We are walking toward ourselves. The rest will follow.